Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Noni Davis. I am here at Sya Academy, an African centered school established by my parents. I am a legacy owner. I give thanks to my dad, who's an ancestor, William Edward Davis, and my mom, who is still with us, Mama Sylvia Davis. And this um, journey of mine is something that is an extension of the historical buff my dad was, and also my mom was an educator. So um, anyway, but today, last week I talked about January 7th as the Ethiopian Christmas, and this was the first time I had ever done any research about them, and mostly I guess because a lot of people are struggling, I guess, especially African Americans, to kind of like reanalyze and take a new look at what we're doing as people. And one of the spaces that I wanted to look at is, wait, these Ethiopians have their whole Christmas day in January 7th. And I knew about, some of the history. The Ark of the Covenant, and oh my goodness, I forgot about the burning bush. They actually have a bush that burns in Ethiopia, which is a nod to Zipporah, who was the wife of Moses. So I said, let me go back and see if I can do a better, a more thorough examination of what Christianity in Africa looked like during biblical time. During biblical time, I know we have plenty of African churches all over uh, the continent now, but even that is mostly done through a Eurocentric lens. And I'm like, I don't understand why we're still doing that. So, and I'm not trying to say anybody has to, but I just think that, it would be great if we could, take another look at it through a lens that is through our own worldview, our own people. So, let's see. So, Jesus's birthday, they call him a Yesu, was celebrated on January 7th, and on January 19th, they're celebrating his baptism, and it's called Timkat, um, which is 12 days after his birth. And I'm not sure how that is that related to something that they do culturally as far as baptism of children. I don't know yet, but I'll find out. So this church, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, was established in 1 AD by Saint Matthew and Saint Bartholomew. Saint Bartholomew was the first apostle to uh, go to Ethiopia and preach and convert people to Christianity. Um, the first convert was the eunuch. And I don't know how many of you all are familiar with Acts chapter 8, 27 through 39. And there's in Acts 23, the, there is a Ethiopian eunuch. Let me pull him up. Here's a picture of Philip, the apostle Philip, talking to the Ethiopian man in the eunuch in the chariot. And so there's a whole lot going on there. From my brain just starts running around when I see all of these pictures. But anyway, so uh, he was in service to Kandaki. Kandaki is a whole Queen Candace line. And in Ethiopia, the Kandaki women were the Queen Mother warriors. They were also responsible for choosing the heir or birthing the heir to the empire, the kingship. And this Ethiopian eunuch was in service to Queen Candace at that time, and he was on his way to Jerusalem to pray. So this was an Ethiopian Jew, which we have heard about. So you got Queen of Sheba, Magda, going and to see King Solomon. He got her pregnant. She had this baby, Menelik, who says he went back and got the Ark of the Covenant, which they still don't know where that is. This is interesting. But anyway, the Ethiopians said they got it. Anyway, um, so he was in service to Queen Candace. And this was, they call him uh St. John of Ethiopia. And the way they even spell it, so it looks like some, I mean, that's the way African spell DJ, John, and Djembe, all of that. So that's an African spelling. Anyway, so he was in service to her, and she ruled from 280. I mean, no, the Kandaki lines were from 284 BCE to 344 CE, which is about 550 years. Imagine, America is only, well, the first people who came over here claiming that this was a new land was in 1607. This is 2025, and so that is 418 some years. Imagine women in rulership for 550 years, and they were warrior queens. So here is a picture of a Menelaus. So I know I've gone off topic, but anyway, so this is Queen of Menelaus, and she was called the one-eyed queen because she had a patch over one of her eyes, because she had a fight with the Romans in 10 CE, and she defeated the Romans. And so, but there's a whole legacy of these Kandakis. That's Kandaki Aminatore. And it's something when you see how these women they were rulers. Here's another one. This is a black Nubian woman, a statue. And so these are black women who were in charge for that long time, longer than America has been a country. Anyway, so back to the Ethiopian eunuch. So he was on his way home when he was stopped by Philip. Philip, the Spirit of God, told Philip to go talk to this Ethiopian man. And he asked him, did you understand the scriptures? And he was reading the book of Isaiah, and it was about the prophecy of Jesus. And so he was like, do you understand what this is about? And of course, the Ethiopian eunuch said, how could I understand what this is about? I don't know. And he said, well, it's the fulfillment. Jesus is the fulfillment of the prophecy. And in order to receive him, then you have to be baptized in water. So as they went further down the road, they said, okay, here's some water. So the Ethiopian eunuch said, hey, can I just be baptized here? And he was like, yes. And so he baptized him. And while in the midst of this situation, according to the scripture, Philip disappeared, but the Ethiopian man came up and started praising God, praising Jesus, or Yeshu, because that's what they call him, and went on about his return home. And so before that was out, within that 100-year period, 1 AD, they had created the Catholic Church. Now, I just want to pause here because, African Americans, Africa has gotten such a terrible beat down by these Europeans. Y'all didn't have any literacy. Here's a man who was reading Hebrew in 1 AD. The Amharic script is 1,000 years old. The Kush Empire, I think, is like 3,000 years old. Let's see, and so the Kushite, 1,400 years is how old ago did we have this empire of the Kushite people, which is Ethiopia. So he's in a chariot. Huh. So they knew knew how about wheels, and they were traveling, and they were doing all this, and they were speaking multiple languages because he obviously had to know Hebrew, and he's reading in Hebrew, and his people are Amharic. So we just need some of this is just dispelling all these notions of Africans being unintelligent and no spiritual understanding. And here we are all up in the middle of this establishing uh this Christian church and ties to the King David and King Solomon, the David line of royalty or um, prophets and all of that. And so, Black people, we gotta know who we are and understand that in everything, this is who we are. But I wanted to show you some of the pictures that I found. First of all, this is ancient Kush. Do you see those pyramids? Sudan had let me see, bring it over here. Sudan had 200 over 200 pyramids are in Sudan. Now Sudan is below Egypt. And so the largest pyramids are in Egypt, which is right there up there in the Mediterranean Sea. But 200 look, these are pyramids. And they said second millennium BC. So they had their pyramids are older. They're smaller, but they're older. So it proves that technology of building pyramids came from Black people. Pardon me. I mean, just so outraged. And I wanted to also show you Taharka. Okay, I don't know if you all remember, but in Hebrews, and no, in during the one of the wars, it was Taharka who came to the aid of Israel against the Assyrians. Taharka was this black man right here. So he was a real person. And then what else do we have? Oh, here's some pictures of Nubian women, these Sudanese women. And then this one was hilarious. Do you see it says Nubian woman, Anglo-Egyptian. Nubian woman, Anglo-Egyptian in Sudan. How is she Anglo? This is another Kandaki of Moreau. And then I just showed you this one, archaeology of a Black Nubian, Queen Kingdom of Kush. So these were Black people that we're talking about who were all in the mix of this. I mean, all right. So it took 4 centuries before the Ethiopian church became rooted in the culture of Ethiopia and developed a doctrine of its own, separate from the Roman Catholic Church. So because of their isolation, Ethiopia is very isolated because it has its highlands and its mountains. So you just can't roll up in there. But they decided that they're up there by themselves, so they developed their own cultural worldview of their Christianity. And so it incorporates some of their own indigenous spiritual beliefs as well as what is going on in Roman Catholic. And we have to remember that even in the European Western worldview of Christianity, a lot of the things that we're doing is from their cultural belief that have nothing to do with the Bible. So it's their own, it's just a cultural space. We got Christmas trees. Christmas trees don't grow. I mean, they have trees in Africa, but they don't look like those conal shaped stuff that we use. It's not the same kind of thing. Um, and so, but anyway, so they have their cultural practices that have seeped into the Christian worldview through the westernization of the Bible, and then but the Cushites also have the same kind of idea. Um, now, because I'm not a theologian, I don't really understand completely what the Ethiopians believe, but they called their church the Tewahedo, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, and Tewahedo means unity. So they believe that that Jesus had a duality of being a spiritual being and a human at the same time, and it represents a unity. That word literally means unity. Um, but I also wanted to just continue another famous church. Um, oh, they have the oldest churches in the world. I'm sorry. The oldest churches in the world are in Ethiopia. Let me pull this back. I want to make sure I said that. So, let's see, the oldest church in the world is called the Church of Saint Mary of Saint of Zion. This okay, let me see. I thought this was fascinating to me too. So, oh Lord, they got the oldest church in the world. This is the church, and it was built in the 4th century. All right, it is the oldest church in the world. Why Africa got to have the oldest church in the world? Then they have Lalibela, the St. George's Church of Lalibela, Ethiopia, and this one is considered to be a eighth wonder of the world. I'm trying to think, eighth wonder of the world, because it was built in between the 12th and the 13th century, and it was carved out of rock. I'm trying to think. I thought I had another picture here from the top. This is what it looks like if you were an aerial view. It is in the shape of a cross. And they cut this thing out of one stone, chiseled it out of one stone in the 12th century before they had uh, construction equipment. Y'all be messing. And it's 8,000 feet. It's 8,000 feet above sea level. That's how high it is. And it was built by this man, this King Lalibela. And apparently what happened is that he went to Jerusalem in the year 1200. And at this time, Jerusalem had been conquered by Arabs. And they had taken over. Of course, it belonged to them, and so they took it back. Because remember that, the Jericho and all of that. They went in there and took it. But anyway, so he built this Lalibela because he was like, oh no, Jerusalem is fallen. So we're going to make an African Jerusalem, and we're going to put it in Ethiopia, and it's going to be the Black Jerusalem. And so he built Lalibela, Lalibela, which they said covers, it's about 11 churches in there. It covers 62 acres, and so you can't even see how big this thing is. And the stone that they carved it out is called the Rock of Ages. I'm like, what? Now they believe, because of the way it's structured, the architectural structure of it is is such that they're like, how is it that the ceiling, this thing is completely made of stone? How is it that the ceiling hasn't collapsed? And so the legend is that, that the angels came down and helped them to design it. So it has the ability for this building to be structured this way and not implode or collapse from inside because of the weight of the stone ceiling. And then it's design. I didn't look for pictures of it, what it looks like on the inside. But this building is that they call it eighth wonder because it defies the scientific, what scientific uh, framework for to be able to stand like that. It's defeating all of the knowledge that we have of scientific knowledge of gravity, of physics, for this thing to be erected and still standing. Because 12th century, this is the 21st century, and so it's still here, and as it is. But so it's 8,000 square feet, 11 churches, and 62 acres. Now, last week I talked to you all about the Ark of the Covenant, but and we know that this is still part of a celebration and during Timcat. So on January 19th, I think it is, there Ethiopia is going to have Timkat, which is the celebration of the baptism of Christ. And it is uh this is when they bring out the Ark of the Covenant. So what is the Ark of the Covenant? I don't know how many people are aware of it, but I did show pictures of it last time. The Ark of the Covenant is let's see, where did I do the Ark of the Covenant? Oh, here it is. So the Ark of the Covenant was a box that they said was 45 inches long and 27 inches high and 27 inches wide. And inside of this, they had the Ark of the Covenant, they had Aaron's rod, and they had Mamma. So the covenant is what God was supposed. They said God gave the commandments to Moses on the mountain and carved them in stone. So those stone tablets are in there. Then Aaron's rod. You remember Aaron's rod was the one that was used to the defeat the Egyptian magi or magicians or priests. And I always thought that was interesting because one of the one of the things that's said is that he turned the Nile River red. But I just want y'all to know now, this is me as a scientist, that the Nile inundates every year, and this is what it looks like when it inundates. This is from National Geographic. It floods every year and it turns red. So I don't know about that. But anyway, I'm just saying that is something that actually happens every year. So manna from heaven was from when the Israelites were out in the wilderness and they were not able to get any food. And so they were crying out to God to please save them. And he said, manna from heaven. And this was supposedly be some kind of grain that they could form into crackers or something like that, or food or bread for sustenance. And they were told not to take more than they needed, for each day, because God was going to send it down every day. And except for the day of the Sabbath. On the day of the Sabbath, they could take more on that day or whatever, something like that. I'm not a theologian, so I can't remember, but I do remember reading the story a couple of times. And so the Ark of the Covenant was always carried with the Israelites during their 40 years out of wandering. Now, what was interesting is that they use it in war. They use it to protect themselves and defeat their enemies. And it was one of when they broke down the wall, the Battle of Jericho. We all know the song about Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. And so people were marching and singing and marching around the wall of Jericho, and it came tumbling down. That's the song that we sing. And so but um, it was the uh the Ark of the Covenant that was in the forefront with them blowing horns, and the priests were singing and making prayers and all of that. So they had it for all those years. And then they had another war. I think that it was the ark was used as a symbol for victory. Then they said in their land. Then they made prayers and offerings to it. They lost it to the Philistines at one point, and the Philistines had to return it because they were all dying from pestilence and disease as a result of having it. They're like, get these people back their stuff. And so they got it back. And then King David had it. Then it was Hezekiah, another one. And then Solomon. David wanted to build a temple, and he didn't get a chance to do it. So it was passed on to his son, Solomon. And then Solomon had it. And then the story gets really messy after that. They really don't know what happened to it. They think the Babylonians, it's been said that the Babylonians took it, but who knows what happened. The people of Ethiopia said they got it. So maybe they do. But anyway, so there's no mention. What's interesting is that they don't mention anything about Ethiopia in the biblical text regarding the Ark of the Covenant. And Queen of Sheba is believed even the Queen of Sheba is believed to be the woman in the Songs of Solomon, and the Songs of Solomon are interesting. It's very, very hot. But also, in addition to this interaction with the Queen of Sheba, they Solomon also married a princess of Egypt, and because she was Egyptian, he had to keep her out of Zion. So there were things that she could not participate in the city because she was foreign born, and but it's just interesting because we keep seeing all of these threads um back to Africa and Black Africa, because a lot of times there's this notion that uh the people in the north of Africa are not the same as the people in the South Africa. Well, southern parts or other part or sub oh, I love the word sub-Sahara Africa, which is just ridiculous. If you go to Europe, if you look at Greeks and Romans, Italy and Greece are at the very bottom of Europe in the Mediterranean Sea. Those people do not look like Norwegians and people from Finland. Those people in Armenia might kind of look like these Italians, but they definitely don't look like those folks from England and France and Germany. And people in Portugal and Spain, they don't they don't look like those Norwegians. So Europe is the smallest continent, and if it has that range of diversity on this very tiny continent, now let's go to Africa, and this is the second largest continent. United States can fit in the into Africa like 4 or 5 times. The whole country could fit inside of Africa, our country. And so they're not supposed to have any diversity in the looks. What are we talking about? So it doesn't make any sense. People who are in Northern Africa, we know that they live along the Mediterranean, and there was a lot of shipping industry and trade that was going on all the way from Morocco and across from Portugal, and you got the Gibraltar right there, and then you have the whole Mediterranean Sea, and there was just a lot of contact between these people. And if you look at them, they all kind of have the same phenotype a little bit. They're dark with wavy hair, or tightly curled hair, and that's because black people were going across there, and black and white, and these people were coming across to us, to our continent. So the phenotype, these people are African. uh if and there's nothing else we can say. And for there to be a difference in phenotype, whatever, as I showed you these pictures, these Nubian women were black. And I just think that the African ties to the Bible are conclusive. We don't have to wonder about it. Oh, we can't prove it. Well, they got all these references, and like I said, you even got Taharka, who went in 667. He supported Palestine. He supported Israel against the Assyrians and fought for them. That was 667 BC. What are we talking about? And then you have the African presence of Cush in Egypt and Nubia. And so, if a person is going to follow the doctrine, if as African people of African descent, if we're going to follow this particular system, Christian religious system, at least know who your people are in it. What was their role in it? And during the biblical history, not just since we've accepted, recently in this last 500 years of understanding, but who were we before that? What were we doing while the history of Israel was being written? And that's all I've got to say about it. I think we need to just do our research, and so we can see the fullness of it. if we're going to practice it. Know the history. Ashe.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course I know my mother.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course I can play the drum.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Sya student.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So don't they hear you? You can do it if you try.